Now Reverend Jerry Wells is going to teach us the word.
All right.
Well, thank you all very much. I'm very blessed to be with you and be a part of this fellowship. Like that song, the word's precision. I'm really amazed by the word and how it just teaches us so much over and over again. The more you read it, the more you meditate on it, the more you understand. And I've been working the parables in the Bible, in the Old Testament and the New Testament, for several years now, more than 5. And the more I think about them, having time to take a section of the Word and just think about it for a month at a time or longer, God can just reveal so much, because as you focus on that particular subject, He can open the doors of your eyes of your understanding, doors of understanding, however you want to look at it. It's great. And it amazes me that with the Lord's parables, and we're going to look at some of those tonight, that Jesus Christ, when He was addressing the audience that He had at that time, whether it was His disciples or He was speaking to the disciples and the Pharisees or other individuals, it had great value and impact at that time. And for those that had ears to hear, they could understand those things. Sometimes they didn't. They had to ask, Lord, when you taught that, what did you mean? And then when they got it, they were like, oh, great. And I feel like that today, because there's so many things in those parables that are applicable to you and I today. They have ready, shelf-made, shelf-ready use right now. So we're going to focus on, please turn to Matthew chapter 7. And there's just 12 verses in this particular section that we're going to cover. And it has multiple little parables in there, but they're all connected. And it starts out with a proverb of the day, and it escalates to a truth that has endured for centuries. And people still continuously and faithfully teach that same principle to their children. Almost every mom, and you guys probably know where we're going now with this teaching, what they teach their kids. So let's start out with Matthew chapter 7. We'll begin reading in verse 1. Judge not, that ye be not judged. For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged. And with what measure ye meet, it shall be measured to you again. Now that is a Jewish proverb of the day, as Bullinger states in his companion Bible. And it's something that had value to them, and it's something great that we should and could live by, not to be judgmental. And then he launches in a whole series of things in different categories to show you, or to show us, how not to be judgmental of others. Verse 3. And why beholdest the mote that is in thine brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye? Now, obviously, this is figurative talk. A mote is a speck or a small particle or a piece of chaff or a splinter. You could also think of, you ever like sit in your home or someplace and there's a ray of sunlight coming through, and as you look through that beam of light, you see little particles floating through the air. Well, that is a mote. And it's really, really tiny. But a beam, on the other hand, is quite large. Now, think about this. If you have a mote or a speck in your eye, are you oblivious to that? No, you're not. You know, if you got a little something in your eye, right? You know, it pesters you. You know, you bug it, you might rub your eye. You know, people do different things. Some people might like take their eyelash and pull it out over the bottom eyelid and let go and see if that'll scrape it off, or however you deal with that speck in your eye. People that have a speck in their eye are fully aware of it. Then he says, you know, these people have a beam in their eye. Well, a beam, as you know, is in this particular case is a large piece of timber. And I work in construction, so when I think about a beam, I mean, I can think about some pretty big beams. I've seen some steel eye beams that are more than 26 or 36 inches in depth, and no man could ever pick it up. It has to be lifted by a crane, and they come on big trucks, or sometimes you'll see a truck that just has a little axle in the back, and there's a huge concrete beam sitting on the front of the truck on this little trolley on the back, and they take this big concrete beam and they use it to set for a bridge. And then, of course, you know, a wood beam, if you've ever been in an old barn and looked up and see those huge beams they have up there. And so think about this illustration that Jesus Christ is painting here. He's this person that has a beam is going to do something for that someone has a speck. Now, a speck will fit in your eye, correct? But you can't even get a beam in your cranial vault, let alone in your eye. So think about the visual imagery that's going on here. People, you know, there might even been a beam laying right there, right where they were working or standing, or somebody was building something, and he's using this illustration, a little speck floating through the air versus this gigantic beam. Let's go continue reading here. Verse 4. Or how wilt thou say to thy brother, let me pull the mote out of thine eye, and behold, a beam is in thine own eye? If you have a speck in one of your eyes, can you still see? Usually, right? It might water, but you can see out the other eye. But if you have a beam in your eye, it's blinding. How can someone that's blinded help someone with a micro, teensy, tiny little particle in their eye? They can't, right? Now, he's set up this illustration, you know, and it's ridiculous. A speck and a gigantic beam in the eye, you know, and then he brings it home to make it more clear. I wonder who was in the audience to observe this and hear this and to be pricked in their heart to maybe inspire a change, or who knows what the scenario was. Verse 5, thou hypocrite, cast out the beam out of thine own eye, then thou shalt see clearly to cast out the mote out of thy brother's eye. So now he's telling them more about what it's about. We started out talking about judge not lest you be judged. You don't want to be a judgmental. Then you got this person's got a speck in their eye, and another person's got a beam in their eye, and they're going to try and do something for this other person, or at least they are going to say something or whatever. The parable in this particular case, the hypocrisy, is addressing fault finding. It's not like you don't know you have a speck in your eye. You know you have a problem. You know you have a fault, or I have a fault, or whatever. I'm aware of those things. You're aware of whatever is going on in your own life. Then you've got someone else that is being hypocritical. This thing is larger than life in their own eye and own life, but somehow they are removed from being critical of their own selves, and they're out to set someone else right. So the thing that they dislike is the thing that they're trying to peck out of somebody else's eye. And the speck is a nuisance, but the beam is blinding. It's blaring. You know, at times I've thought, man, if somebody could just see how they're acting, would they keep doing it? Then I think, what if I could see myself outside myself? Would I like myself? Would I be happy with my behavior or my words or my deeds or actions? So it's confronting. You know, he's admonishing people not to be a mote hunter out there eyeballing other people and Meanwhile, you got your own things that you might need to work on here and there. So the hypocrisy being confronted is criticism of others' faults that are egregiously large in the other individual's life. It's kind of like a wasp complaining about the sting of others. It just doesn't make sense, does it? Because the Lord is talking about hypocrisy, the fault finder has the same fault that he dislikes in others. And somehow he has freedom from the offending fault from those he's trying to judge, or her. They should clean. Ever heard this? You should clean up your own backyard before you start worrying about your neighbors. All these sayings come in the world that actually come from the Word, a lot of them. Also, I want you all to keep in mind, if it is your job or your responsibility to judge another person's actions, then I admonish you to please do just exactly that. Judge their action, not the individual. We separate the sin from the person. We love people, but we deal with the sin. So if that's the case, just keep those things in mind. We want to be kind and loving and tender, and we want to win people with winning words and that kind of thing. And however you do it, whatever your manner is, or your manner of entering in is, that's what we want to do. We want to be kind and tender if we have to handle something with someone else. So let's move on to verse 6. Give not that which is holy unto the dogs, neither cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn again and rend you. Now, it's interesting how Bollinger points out that there's a structure to this verse. And if you ever see how he breaks that down in the Companion Bible, it's point, point, and then it goes backwards. So it goes dogs, hogs, hogs, dogs. So he starts out talking about dogs, swine, more detail about the swine, and he goes back to the dogs. Now, the audience he was addressing was probably very cognizant of the Pentateuch and the other writings. And the word was very clear about how to handle holy things, that they were not to be offered to the unclean. If someone was unclean, then they had a responsibility to take care of their business, and by sunset, if everything was squared away, then they would be ceremonially clean again and can participate. But the holy things were not to be given to unclean. Also, in Leviticus, it's clear about not giving holy things to those that are outside of the children of Israel. So when he starts talking about this thing, about giving that which is not unclean, he's drawing their attention to holy things. And okay, so then what would be the unholy thing here? So he's talking about dogs and swine. Now, dogs in the Eastern culture are not like our lovable pets here, where you have a dog, people have them live in their home. Some people even let them sleep on their beds or whatever, just different things like that. However people arrange their own house, that's their business. But in the East, the dogs over there were much different. They were wild, they were feral, they were vicious. They stuck to themselves, to their own groups, and the people in the Eastern culture did not mess with these dogs. And because it talks about, when you see the structure of this verse as give that which is not holy unto the dogs, then at the end of the verse it says, and turn again and rend you. That word rend means to tear apart, to shred in pieces, to violently take apart. Something else interesting about that word, it means to tear apart in the mind. So they use your words against you, to rend you, to rip you apart with what you had shared with them. That's why it's talking about not offering those things which are holy unto the unclean. Then it brings up swine. And as you know, they didn't eat that. It didn't, fall within the dietary guidelines. It was an unclean animal. They didn't, people here in the States, we got potbelly pigs and people have them in their house and they're all cute and all this other stuff, or they got other things and how they handle their farm animals or whatever. Israel did not mess with them at all. So something else that these things communicate to us, and like in Psalms and in Proverbs and in other places, when the word is utilizing uh, an illustration about a dog or a swine, it has to do with spiritual contamination. So they were not to offer holy things to people that are spiritually contaminated, that cannot be redeemed or cannot be changed. So in this particular scenario, he's saying, don't offer that to the dogs because they're going to turn again and run. It's not like a dog, and I have dogs. And I love my dogs. I train them. I work with them every day, and they have obedience that they go through and all that kind of stuff. And you have a dog that maybe bites you when you go to feed him or something like that. That can be trained out of that dog. If they have resource guarding or food aggression or ball aggression, whatever, those things can be trained out, and you can have a wonderful pet that doesn't do that anymore. These dogs were not like that. They could not be changed. Sometimes you run into people that don't want to change. They don't want to hear what you have to say, or they just listen long enough to try and catch you in something and try and jumble up your words. And then think about this illustration with the swine. It says, neither cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet. In the Eastern culture, pearls were very precious. They were rare. It was a big deal if someone found one or they had one or whatever. It was a treasure. Now, I would like you to imagine a whole trough full of pearls. That would be an exquisite treasure. But to that hog, going to that trough, expecting to find grain in there and finding pearls in there, how do you think he's going to respond? He's not going to be blessed. He's going to be aggravated or disappointed, or he's just going to just slosh it around trying to find the grain that he's looking for and smash all that treasure into the mud. So now you've got a different category of people. We started out this whole thing about judge not lest ye be judged. Then it says, the Lord's teachings about not being a hypocrite. Like if you got issues in your own life, okay, well, take care of that. But don't go around being a moat hunter trying to find it somebody else's life and make everybody else perfect while you got your own, dirty backyard. Then what if you do run into someone that's not going to receive what you have to say? That's an issue. Now you've got someone, okay, I'm not supposed to judge. And this person here, it seems like they're an individual that's not going to receive whatever. They're going to take my words and stick them up my nose or whatever they're going to do. They're not going to handle the great truths of the word that we're going to share with them. And he said, don't do that. So how do you know? If you're not supposed to be judgmental or a hypocrite and you got to deal with these people, how do you do that? Well, let's continue reading. He goes on. And this is very interesting. I love how Jesus Christ always taught his disciples not to go to him, but to go to God, because he knew he wouldn't always be there. So he's pointing them to the source of knowledge. Ask, and it shall be given to you. Now that first word, I love that. It starts out with ask, comma. I'd like you, however you do it, if you are taking notes, whatever, you might want to write down A, period, S, period, K, period. It's a big word. Ask. Ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. Ask, seek, knock. It's like an acronym to remind you. Ask, seek, knock. Now, here's a silly illustration, I guess. So you got a little boy in the house, and his mom's there, and he sees her. He's, Mommy, I'd like a cookie. Oh, sure, honey. You know where they are. They're in a jar. Go help yourself. You can have one. So, same little boy Mom's not in the room. He wants a cookie. So what's he going to do? He's going to seek for his mama, right? He's going to go find her, and he finds her. Mom, have a cookie? Oh, sure, baby. You know where they are. They're over in the blah, blah, blah. Go get you one. Okay. So he asks for what he wants. He seeks for what he can't find. And then maybe he's seeking around and he can't find his mom, and she's behind a door, and he knows his mom's in the bedroom or whatever, and he knocks, and mom opens. Mom, can I have a cookie? Sure, go ahead. So he asks, and he seeks, and he knocks. So he asks for what he wishes, he seeks for what he misses, and he knocks when he's shut out. Now, it's interesting that Jesus Christ said, knock, and it shall be open unto you. That breaks against culture, because in the Eastern culture, someone knocked, people just didn't immediately open the door. Maybe like we do here in the States, someone knocks on the door, you go open it to see what they want. They didn't there. They would talk through the door to the person, or they might talk from the upper window down to identify the individual and what they wanted. And then once they've been qualified or whatever, they'd let them in. So he's saying, ask, seek, and knock, and it'll be open unto you. Verse 8, for everyone that asketh receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be opened. He's teaching them to go to God to ask him. That's what we do. If we're in a scenario and we don't know who we're talking to, or the situation or whatever, maybe we can ask God. God, is there an open door to handle this with this individual? It might have to be a quick prayer in the middle of a conversation. Ask, can I bring this point up at this time or whatever? And usually, answers come quickly in life. God, he'll set things up, and or we're seeking for information or whatever, and God will provide a way for that to happen. And then the knocking. Now, it's interesting when we are seen to be shut out of a situation, we're asking God to open the door. Sometimes that door flies wide open, and we have access to go in and to minister the word, or to teach, or to help, or to do whatever. And sometimes we knock and it doesn't open. And we just have to be cognizant of that if it doesn't open, then we just move on. I think about Jesus Christ when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he prayed to God 3 times that the cup would be taken away. And as far as it's being recorded, it doesn't say that there was any answer given to him. And he knew what he had to do. He had to follow through with what he knew and he understood. Sometimes with us, we're knocking, looking for an answer, we're trying to get into something, and God doesn't open it. The best thing to do is just say, all right, Father, it's cool. I'm going to move on. Maybe I don't need to know the whole details of what's going on. So the reason why Jesus Christ is teaching them these principles or these things is because life is spiritual. And sometimes we need spiritual solutions for spiritual problems. If someone's got a contamination issue going on, or they need help in a certain category, God, what do I do? And he'll make those things available for us, or it'll just be clear that, son, it's time to move on. Okay, Father, I'm with you. I just want to do what you want me to do. So Jesus Christ knew he wouldn't always be there, and he wanted to make sure that they had what they needed. And God always, always, always provides whatever it is that you and I need. And he seems to do it, that Ephesians 3:20 style. It comes in more abundant. Our life is more abundant, whether it's answers or understanding or help or guidance or whatever those things may be. God works dynamically in those situations. And we'll see that here in verse 9. Or what man is there of you whom if his son asketh bread, will he give him a stone? Or if he ask a fish, will he give him a serpent? If ye then, being evil or having the potential to do evil things, know how to give good gifts unto your children, how much more shall your Father, which is in heaven, give you good things, or give good things to them that ask him? What do? They ask. They ask God. He only gives good, only light. So whenever we have a need, we can have confidence and trust that we can ask our Heavenly Father, and He's going to be there to help us out in the situation, whether we're, okay, we're not supposed to be judgmental. Not supposed to be walking around looking for other people's problems. We're not supposed to be hypocritical about it. We're not supposed to be judgmental, that kind of thing. And then if we're dealing with people that we do have to figure out, if there's more that we need to know, okay, do I stay or do I go? Do I move on? If I don't know, then I can ask my Heavenly Father. But then we come to this zenith truth of understanding that, almost every mom in the world teaches their kids, and I don't know whether they're Christian, non-Christian, whatever, they move on and they teach their children this wonderful truth. And you probably heard of it called the golden rule, right? Have people ever heard that? My mom taught it to me. Verse 12. Therefore, all things whatsoever ye would that men should do to you, even do ye even so to them. For this is the law and the prophets. There it is. If you don't know what to do, treat other folks like you want to be treated. Love them the way you want to be loved. When I think about that situation, if I have a problem in my life or I got an issue going on, I would like people to handle me with love. And if it's something that is not going to be nice, maybe they start with a compliment or something. They take the edge off. Just in case after this teaching you want to say something to me. And then, then you can get to the word. You can minister the word with love and tenderness and humility. That's how we treat other people. And what's really something about this verse that drew my attention in here too is it says, for this is the law and the prophets. What an interesting phrase. Treat others how you want to be treated. This is the law and the. Where else does that come up in the word? Well, I'll give you a sneak preview. Let's go to 22, Matthew 22. And you guys are very familiar with this area as well. For this is the law and the prophets. How can we simply sum up this vast charge of the law and the prophets? Well, we're not judgmental. We're not mote hunters. We're aware of spiritual issues in people's lives. We ask God, we ask, seek, and knock for his help and guidance. And ultimately, we love other people how we want to be loved. So, Matthew chapter 22, and we'll read in verse 36. Master, which is the great commandment in the law? Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. The second is like unto the first. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang what? All the law and the prophets. It always comes back to love. God is love. For God so loved the world. Jesus Christ said, A new commandment I teach you, that ye love one another. Greater love hath no man that he lay down his life for his friends. Love. Love is the main thing that separates Christianity from every other world religion out there. Love. We teach people to love. We act and live love. That's who we are. We are imitators of God. Be therefore imitators of God as dear children. We imitate him who is love. So the first and great commandment is we love God with our whole heart, soul, mind, spirit. With everything that we have, we love him. Then we love our neighbor as ourselves. And who's our neighbor? Our neighbor is the person that you're next to. It doesn't have to be your physical neighbor that's connected to your property. It's whoever you're near. That's who you love. So what a great series of parables talking about with a proverb of the day, not to be judgmental, judge not that lest ye be judged. Then he moves on to talking about the mote and the beam, not to be a hypocrite, then being aware of spiritual issues in life. And then if you don't know, ask God, reach out to him and say, Father, please help me figure out this situation, or however you pray. And then the fail-safe for all these things is to treat other people how you want to be treated. And he even lays it out very plainly. The way to treat other people is with love. God bless you all.